I'm a 31-year-old woman married to Alex for 4 years. We have a beautiful 14-month-old son, Ethan, who is the light of our lives. 6 weeks ago, my husband's older sister, Vanessa, asked if she could stay with us for a couple of weeks while her apartment was being renovated. Despite my reservations, I agreed because family is important to my husband. From the moment she arrived, I knew this was a mistake. Vanessa has very strong opinions about parenting and doesn't hesitate to share them, loudly and frequently, despite never having children herself. The first incident occurred during dinner on her second night with us. Ethan was fussing a bit while I was trying to feed him some mashed vegetables. Without warning, Vanessa reached over, took the spoon from my hand, and said, "You're doing it all wrong. He's clearly not hungry. You shouldn't force him." I was stunned into silence. Alex gently intervened, saying, "Vanessa, we appreciate your concern, but we know it works for our son." She rolled her eyes and muttered, "Well, clearly you don't, but whatever." Things only escalated from there. Vanessa began criticizing everything about our parenting, our sleep training methods. "You're traumatizing him," our decision to introduce solid foods too early, and even how I held him. "You're not supporting his head properly. He's not a sack of potatoes." One morning, she walked into the kitchen while I was preparing Ethan's breakfast and announced that she'd rearranged his nursery overnight because the feng shui was all wrong, and it was affecting his energy. I discovered she had moved furniture, reorganized his clothes, and even relocated some of his toys to the donation pile because they were overstimulating. I kept my composure and informed Alex, who spoke with her again. Vanessa apologized, but her behavior didn't change. Instead, she became more passive-aggressive, making comments like, "I guess some mothers just don't care about creating optimal environments for brain development, and it's so brave of you to ignore all the research on infant nutrition." The worst incident happened last week. Ethan was having a particularly difficult day. Teething pain had made him cranky, and he'd been crying on and off all morning. I was exhausted but managing. Vanessa had gone out shopping, providing a brief respite from her constant commentary. When she returned and heard Ethan crying, she stormed into the nursery where I was rocking him and snatched him from my arms, saying, "Oh my God, he's been crying for hours. Can't you do anything right? This is why some people shouldn't have children." Something inside me snapped. I took my son back from her and said through gritted teeth, "Get out of my son's room now." She looked shocked but backed away. As soon as I had calmed Ethan down and put him down for his nap, I confronted Vanessa in the living room. "I've had enough," I told her. "You've been here for almost 6 weeks, well beyond the couple of weeks you promised. You've criticized every aspect of our parenting, rearranged our home without permission, and today you crossed an unforgivable line. I want you out of our house by tomorrow." Vanessa's eyes widened. "You can't kick me out. My apartment isn't ready, and I have nowhere to go." "That's not my problem," I replied. "You should have thought about that before disrespecting me in my own home and undermining my parenting at every turn. Stay with friends, get a hotel, whatever you need to do, but you're not staying here." Vanessa immediately called Alex at work, crying about how I was throwing her out onto the street. She also called my in-laws, who then called me to express their disappointment in my lack of compassion and family loyalty. Alex came home early that day, and to his credit, after hearing both sides, he supported my decision. "Vanessa," he said, "we love you, but your behavior has been unacceptable. We can help you find somewhere else to stay, but you need to leave tomorrow." Vanessa left the next morning, slamming the door behind her. Now my in-laws are angry with us, saying we should have been more understanding of her situation. Alex's uncles and aunts have been texting us about family duty and how blood is thicker than water. I understand that Vanessa is in a difficult position with her apartment renovations taking longer than expected, but I don't think that gives her the right to criticize our parenting, rearrange our home, and ultimately try to take our child from my arms. Am I wrong for prioritizing my mental health and my son's well-being over extended family obligations? Should I have endured a few more weeks of her behavior to keep the peace? I moved into my suburban neighborhood 3 years ago, attracted by the quiet streets and family-friendly atmosphere. For the most part, it's been everything I hoped for until last month when a simple misunderstanding with my next-door neighbor escalated into full-blown community drama. It started with a tree. A large maple sits on the property line between my house and my neighbor Karen's. Last autumn, I noticed some dead branches hanging precariously over my driveway and my children's play area. After consulting an arborist who confirmed these branches posed a safety risk, I scheduled a tree service to trim them. The morning of the appointment, I left a note in Karen's mailbox explaining the situation and a limited trimming that would occur that afternoon. I had to leave for work early and wouldn't see her before the tree service arrived. In retrospect, I should have discussed this with her in person days earlier. But between work deadlines and my children's activities, it slipped my mind until the last minute. When I returned home that evening, Karen was waiting for me at the property line, visibly upset. Apparently, the tree service had been more aggressive with their trimming than I had authorized, removing several healthy branches along with the dead ones. Karen accused me of deliberately damaging her tree without permission. I apologized sincerely for the miscommunication with the tree service and offered to split the cost of having an arborist evaluate the tree to ensure its health wasn't compromised. She refused, claiming I was trying to buy my way out of responsibility and that the tree was irreparably damaged. The next day, I discovered Karen had posted about the incident in our neighborhood Facebook group, characterizing me as a dishonest person who had mutilated her beloved tree while she was at work. The post included unflattering photos of the trimmed tree from specific angles that made the pruning look more severe than it was. Neighbors I had barely spoken to began commenting, taking sides without knowing the full story. Some suggested I should pay to replace the entire tree, valued at thousands of dollars, while others defended me, pointing out that trimming branches overhanging one's property is legally permitted in our state. Things took an even more bizarre turn when Karen installed security cameras pointed directly at my property, claiming she needed to protect her remaining trees from further destruction. She also began documenting every time my children or I ventured near the property line, taking photos and noting the time and date in a notebook she carried conspicuously whenever she was outside. Attempts to resolve the situation directly with Karen were unsuccessful. She refused my invitation to sit down with a neutral third party from the neighborhood association. Instead, she escalated by contacting the city's code enforcement office, claiming I had violated several ordinances with the tree trimming. I hadn't, as confirmed by an inspector who visited. Last weekend, I hosted my daughter's 10th birthday party in our backyard. Karen chose this moment to operate her leaf blower continuously for 3 hours, despite there being few leaves to blow in mid-spring. When other neighbors asked her to stop because of the noise disrupting the children's party, she claimed she had every right to maintain her yard whenever she wanted. The situation has divided our once peaceful neighborhood. Some neighbors have stopped speaking to me, while others have shared their own Karen stories, revealing I'm not the first to experience her territorial behavior. The neighborhood association president suggested a community mediation session, but Karen declined to participate. My children now feel uncomfortable playing in our backyard, fearing they're being watched and recorded. My previously friendly relationships with several neighbors have cooled, as some believe I initiated the conflict by not seeking explicit permission before trimming the tree. I've considered reaching out to Karen one more time with a peace offering, perhaps offering to plant a new tree on her property as a goodwill gesture, even though the arborist confirmed the original tree is perfectly healthy despite the trimming. However, I'm concerned this might be interpreted as an admission of wrongdoing and reinforce her behavior. Should I continue trying to make amends with Karen for the sake of neighborhood harmony, or is it time to accept that some conflicts simply can't be resolved through goodwill alone? Has anyone navigated a similar situation successfully? My cousin Emily and I have always been close, more like sisters than cousins. When she got engaged last year, I was thrilled to be asked to be her maid of honor. I threw myself into planning her bridal shower, organizing her bachelorette weekend, and supporting her through all the wedding preparations. Everything was going smoothly until 3 weeks before the wedding when Emily and her fiancé Jake sent out an unusual email to all wedding guests. In it, they explained that instead of traditional wedding gifts, they were requesting cash contributions toward their honeymoon to Bali. The email included a link to a honeymoon registry website where guests could purchase specific experiences like couples massages, sunset dinners, and excursions. While this practice has become increasingly common, what caused controversy was the minimum contribution amount, $250 per guest. The email explicitly stated, We've been living together for 2 years and have everything we need for our home. Your presence at our wedding is a gift, but if you'd like to contribute to our once-in-a-lifetime honeymoon, we kindly request a minimum gift of $250 per person to help make our dreams come true. My aunt, Emily's mother, called me immediately after receiving the email, upset about how this would be perceived by family members, particularly older relatives and those with financial constraints. She asked me, as maid of honor and Emily's closest confidant, to speak with her about reconsidering this approach. I carefully brought up the subject with Emily over coffee, suggesting that while the honeymoon fund was a great idea, perhaps they could remove the minimum amount requirement and allow guests to contribute what they felt comfortable giving. I also mentioned that some family members might prefer to give traditional gifts and that flexibility would be appreciated. Emily's reaction stunned me. She accused me of trying to ruin her special day and said if I was a true friend, I would defend her decisions instead of criticizing them. She claimed that $250 was practically nothing considering the cost of their wedding, and that anyone who couldn't afford it probably shouldn't be attending anyway. I tried to explain that for many people, including our grandparents on fixed incomes, our cousins who were students, and friends who were just starting their careers, $250 plus travel expenses to attend the wedding represented a significant financial burden. Emily dismissed these concerns, saying she and Jake deserved their dream honeymoon after investing so much in providing a beautiful wedding experience for their guests. The conversation ended with Emily storming out of the cafe. That evening, she removed me as her maid of honor via text message and asked her college roommate to take my place. What followed was an explosive family divide. Some relatives sided with Emily, arguing that it was her wedding and she could establish any gift expectations she wanted. Others were appalled by what they saw as entitlement and poor etiquette. The family text thread became a battleground of passive-aggressive comments and outright arguments. My aunt blamed me for creating the rift by questioning Emily's decisions. My parents defended me, saying I had approached the situation tactfully and with Emily's best interests at heart. Extended family members began taking sides, with some canceling their RSVPs to the wedding in protest. Emily and Jake ultimately proceeded with their wedding and honeymoon plans unchanged. I attended the wedding as a guest, not as part of the bridal party, and contributed the requested $250 despite my objections to the requirement, feeling it was important to support my cousin despite our disagreement. At the reception, Emily barely acknowledged me, and several relatives who had sided with her gave me the cold shoulder. What should have been a joyous family celebration became an uncomfortable event marked by tension and forced smiles for photographs. 2 months have passed since the wedding, and the family remains divided. Holiday plans are already being complicated by relatives refusing to attend if certain others will be present. My aunt has suggested that I should apologize to Emily for interfering with her wedding plans, while my parents maintain I did nothing wrong by expressing concerns privately to my cousin. Emily and Jake returned from their honeymoon last week. She posted dozens of photos on social media thanking everyone who generously contributed to their unforgettable experience, specifically naming contributors, a move many interpreted as deliberately highlighting who had and hadn't met their contribution expectations. I value my relationship with Emily and want to repair it, but I'm not sure I should apologize for raising valid concerns about an approach that ultimately created significant family tension. Was I wrong to suggest she reconsider the minimum gift requirement? Should I have supported her decision regardless of its impact on other family members? How do I navigate repairing these relationships without validating behavior I still believe was inconsiderate? I've been working at a mid-sized marketing firm for 3 years. Until recently, our office culture was collaborative and friendly, with a tradition of celebrating employee birthdays with a small gathering in the break room, complete with cake and a card signed by everyone. Last month, this seemingly innocent tradition sparked a workplace conflict that has created lingering tension among colleagues. It began when our manager, Lisa, announced we would be celebrating 3 birthdays occurring in the same week: mine, my colleague Jonathan's, and our newest team member, Rachel's. Lisa assigned Megan, our administrative assistant, to coordinate the celebration as usual. The day before the celebration, I overheard Megan telling another colleague that she had ordered an elaborate custom cake for Rachel depicting her favorite hobby, rock climbing, but had simply purchased standard supermarket cakes for Jonathan and me. When I asked Megan about this discrepancy, she explained that Rachel was new and deserved a special welcome birthday, while Jonathan and I had been celebrated before. I expressed concern that this unequal treatment might make Jonathan and me feel less valued, suggesting instead that all 3 birthdays be celebrated equally, perhaps with one larger, higher quality cake for everyone. Megan became defensive, stating that she had already placed the orders and that I was being petty about cake. She also mentioned that Rachel had dietary restrictions. She's gluten sensitive but not celiac, which justified the special cake, though she hadn't bothered to check if Jonathan or I had any dietary considerations. I don't, but Jonathan is lactose intolerant. The next day, the celebration proceeded as Megan had planned. Rachel received her elaborate custom cake, presented first with significant fanfare, while Jonathan and I were presented with basic supermarket sheet cakes afterward, almost as an afterthought. Rachel's cake was accompanied by premium plates and utensils, while ours came with standard office supplies. The difference was obvious to everyone. Some colleagues looked uncomfortable, while others seemed oblivious to the awkwardness. Jonathan, always conflict avoidant, thanked everyone politely but later told me privately that he felt embarrassed and overlooked. After the celebration, I spoke with Lisa, expressing concern not about the cakes themselves, but about the message sent by such visibly unequal treatment of employees celebrating the same milestone. I emphasized that consistent treatment fosters a sense of fairness and belonging in the workplace. Lisa seemed surprised by my feedback, admitting she hadn't noticed the disparity because she arrived late to the gathering. She'd promised to speak with Megan and ensure future celebrations would be more equitable. The next day, I received an email from Rachel, who had apparently been told about my concerns. She accused me of trying to ruin her first office birthday and being jealous of her warm welcome. She copied several colleagues on the email, including Lisa and Megan. This sparked a flurry of reply-all responses, with the office quickly dividing into factions. Some colleagues supported my perspective about workplace equality, while others accused me of being petty and making a mountain out of a molehill. Megan claimed I was undermining her role and that I should have spoken to her directly instead of going to Lisa, though I had, in fact, approached Megan first. Lisa eventually called a team meeting to address the situation, emphasizing the importance of direct communication and equal treatment in the workplace. She announced a new policy for birthday celebrations. All would be treated uniformly with the same type of cake and presentation. While this resolved the procedural issue, the emotional aftermath lingers. Rachel barely speaks to me now, and Megan is noticeably cold. Several colleagues have told me privately that they think I overreacted, while others have thanked me for addressing a pattern of favoritism they had noticed in other contexts as well. The office atmosphere, once collegial and supportive, now feels strained. Small groups whisper together, conversations stop when certain people enter the room, and team projects have become awkward when they involve members from different sides of the conflict. I stand by my belief that equality in workplace celebrations is important, but I wonder if I could have handled the situation differently to achieve the same outcome without creating such division. Was I wrong to address this issue, or should I have ignored the unequal treatment to maintain workplace harmony? How can I repair relationships with colleagues who viewed my concerns as an attack on the new employee's welcome?